I wasn't kidding. Hey, it's Chris. Let's do this. Huge week. And I know you guys in the comment section are going, Chris, you hyped this week up video-wise last weekend, and you said it was going to be the biggest. There's a ton of stuff going on. Don't let me fool you. This preamble is going to be short because I have way too many games to cover in way too, well, potentially long of time at the same time. So we're going to get right into it because there are just things going all over the place. Lots of money, lots of things game-wise, mechanistic-wise, thematic for everybody across the board this week. Crazy stuff. Stuff I knew about, stuff I didn't know about. You ready? Let's go. I mean, this is why you tune in, right? You want to see me give opinions on the big stuff. So we're starting with the biggest of them all. We're going Dragon Eclipse first from Wicked Realms. And do you want Pokemon LCG, sort of TCG style card game? You remember the game I covered a year ago on crowdfunding, like Robomon? This is like Robomon with a different skin, in a sense. This is the biggest question I'm going to put out to you right here at the beginning of this video. If this didn't look so pretty, if the aesthetic wasn't so nice, if the miniatures weren't so cool looking, would you be as enticed by the gameplay? See Lorcana for example number 2 that we just recently talked about as well. So what you got going on here from Awakened Realms is you've got their take on the one player. And I mean that, I really mean that as a one player style game. Now it says 2 players. You can do more, but I really kind of thinks it gives me the vibe of Seventh Continent, if you will, where you're really, or even Robomon, where, you know, yeah, 2 players, cooperative, you can kind of mix and match and kind of do this decision making shared wise. And you know what? No, this is a 1-player game. And so I look at it mainly from that standpoint. If you are looking at this, you need to be looking at this from, will I play this game as a 1-player? You're going to be drafting these cards using your unique elemental focus as these little, we'll call them Mon, as opposed to just Pokemon. What's the term they actually use here? Mistlings. Your Mistlings are going to have all elemental separate powers, and you're going to be basically customizing a pre-built deck that allows you to sort of explore the range of what you can tame, what you can battle, and what you can acquire along the way. And it's like a scenario-driven campaign system that they've got going on here. The thing I worry about, the thing I am most concerned about, the thing that is not really fully addressed on the page in any adequacy, in my opinion, is the fact that it is solo. Now they talk about this adventure mode versus 1v1 mode and then a roguelite mode, but none of this stuff is fleshed out. They made it very clear during the update prior to the campaign launch last week that really the people that had hands-on were only getting the solo mode. They weren't getting the 1v1. They weren't getting, like, I don't think the roguelite versus adventure. You know, I'll leave you guys to figure out which one it actually was. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I mean, that's the issue, right? And there's no rule book for those things. There's no hands-on for those things. And that should worry you because, you know what? I say this every week. I say this every forking week. There are very few games that do solo, cooperative, competitive well. And I don't mean well by just saying well. I mean that you think that all 3 of those modes are outstanding. Because I'm looking at this going, this is a solo game, scenario-based, tame your own creatures. Do you want to do that solo? I mean, yeah, Pokemon the video game works really well, even though, you know, Game Freak puts out a horrible product and the graphic design is, you know, from the 1990s, but that's what you're dealing with here. Now, first edition, I don't like that. You're simulating the TCG model and you're trying to sort of edge on both sides of things, and I don't like seeing that. The only thing I like seeing from a TCG model standpoint is Millennium Blades, which does it tongue-in-cheek, not actually trying to a little bit of FOMO here. Then they've got foils, and they talk about, you know, these packs that are resealable that you're going to be slowly unlocking as the campaign scenario goes through. I mean, again, I can't make the argument that $55 isn't a bad price. I think it's fine, you know, and I think you get the stretch goals with it here. But again, this page is weirdly set up here. Double the price, though, over double the price, will get you miniatures as well as foils and a binder and acrylic markers and a big box, whatever that entails as well. And they tell you what's going to be in both editions here. You're going to get stretch goals, you know, PvP mode, roguelite mode is going to be available in each of them. But, you know, if you can't tell me how fleshed out these are going to be, that's the thing that worries me with Awakened Realms. That's the thing that's plagued them, nipped on their heels campaign after campaign after campaign. You know, whether it's Nemesis or Tainted Grail, the expansion stuff, the stuff that's not fully fleshed out during the actual, you know, campaign prior to, has not always been well thought of in the most regard. It's very similar to Simon, where, you know, the expansions are complete hit or miss. You know, the argument still can be made, going back to Nemesis, for example, or Nemesis Lockdown, that the base game by itself is the best way to play it. And I don't like hearing that, because there's a lot of other content wrapped up in a lot of money that otherwise sits on a shelf or isn't preferred. So especially if that's the case, right? Like, why would you get it on crowdfunding if the other stuff isn't nearly as well thought of? So deal or not, that's the concern. I mean, yeah, miniatures are awesome. I love me some acrylics, right? But yeah, I worry about this. Now you're getting all of this stuff and you get all these models that look awesome. And I just, like I said at the beginning, right? If this aesthetic wasn't as good, if you didn't have these miniatures whatsoever, would you still be going in on this game? Would you still think as highly of this game as a solo game? I guess, you know, you can compare this to the other one that's currently running on GameFound of Chip Theories of Hoplomachus, right? You're just substituting miniatures for really expensive poker chips. So take your pick, I guess, but one of them has a little bit stronger pedigree, even though it's going to cost you twice as much. So that's what you're sort of dealing with here. And you can see on all of these mislings, I almost mispronounced that there, that they've got this element, and then they've got the stats down here, and you basically have an Ivion Senjutsu sort of board that you're going to be maneuvering them across. Again, very similar to the Robomon setup from a year ago that I talked about previously. And it's fine, but a lot of this is just pictures of these. There's a lot of content there on this page. It talks you through the packs. It talks you through the foils, the pre-packed boosters, right, that you're going to be unlocking and having available to this. And there's tons of videos on here as well, and they run you through what's going to be into them. But apparently, you know, your elements have to match. You're not going to be cross-matching elements. You're not going to be sort of deck building in that aspect. It's going to be very contained, but you're going to have so many cards in your deck in the first place that you can kind of run through. So the real question is, as I just talked about previously, well, one, do you want an encyclopedia with lore? Anyway, but are you going to be looking for a rule book before you back this at this point? I mean, I love the idea of arena. I love the idea of not having to deal with tiles and not having to deal with a board, and you have a little bit of variable setup there in the scenario-based system with a 1 versus 1. And you know me, right? Like, I am a huge 1 versus 1 junkie. Huge! But, you know, when your main mode isn't the 1 versus 1, I have awesome 1 versus 1 games. And so you need to put out an awesome 1 versus 1. And that's what I'm concerned about there. Stretch goals, yeah. Value content, great. Now, again, with all the Awakened Realms, you can see they sort of leave this half open slot-wise there. What other expansions are you going to offer? How many extra expansions of this are you going to put out with this? Honestly, I hope they didn't do any, because I hope this would be relatively solidly contained, but it's not going to be. We know you're going to see more. It's just a typical campaign, just like with Simon. So all the video preview content you want right here, all of the stuff. Then they talk about the co-op, but again, there's no actual information. And so that's what worries me, because then you just get down to the miniatures here. So there you go. I mean, again, go watch a video or two, but unless you put out a rule book for me, and maybe I'm just missing it, but I thought that wasn't up at the time of me filming this at least, or, you know, unless you give me actually concrete, direct information on the co-op, which again seems like more shared decision making 7th Continent style rather than truly, you know, you're going off and doing your own thing separately, or you're going to give me very, very, very concrete hands-on with the 1 versus 1, you know, I would be arguing that there's no reason to pledge this now and get it during the late pledge, unless you really want the follow backer gift. So, I mean, it's got $1.5 million. Aesthetic is the best on the market, but the gameplay, it needs to be seen for me. And so, especially as a non-solo person, right now, it's a pass. That's okay. Now, speaking of things, my video is probably on here. I haven't even looked at the page prior to filming this. That's my mistake in the first place. But this is Beast Shattered Isles. This is offering more of a Beast thing. And so you saw my video earlier in the week. If you didn't, you can go check that out. But this is a 1 versus all asymmetric with some hidden movement. Now, that's people's biggest criticism, right? Is that it's not hidden movement enough. It's not pure hidden movement. It's not. I won't make that argument to you, but it uses it to the extent that it works. Your action drafting system is how you're going to be portraying this game from the get-go. You have asymmetric cards that you are going to be drafting from the Hunter and the Beast side, and those are going to be the cards that you're going to be using on a turn-by-turn basis over a series of 3 rounds, days and nights, that you're going to be slowly moving across the land, picking off animals if you're the Beast, or trying to hunt the Beast in the first place if you are the asymmetric Hunters. This is going to offer you more Beasts. This is going to offer you more Hunters. The copy that I had 3 of each, and it actually was surprisingly not creep wise in terms of expansion. So I was very relatively pleased from that aspect. And it's also going to give you the one thing that this game really needs more of in the first place is the contracts. The contracts are the scenario based systems that give each board setup, beyond the asymmetry of the Hunters and the Beast, an actual difference game to game. It also is going to add 3 separate elements that are going to be additional things that you can use to manipulate on the board or change the dynamic of the board in the first place, including hidden paths and ruins on the board that can be controlled for additional bonuses as you go along. Is that enough for you? Well, that's pretty much everything. Did I mention they've got standees as well as miniatures, I believe? So how do you feel about this? Now, again, cool stuff, different stuff, and they're all asymmetric. Do you need it? No, you don't need it whatsoever. Is it going to give you more of a good thing if you like this thing in the first place? Yes. Is it going to change your mind if you didn't like it in the first place? No. And you know what? That's okay, because you don't have to adapt to everyone. You don't have to give everyone everything. And that's, again, going back to Awakened Realms. Like, I almost wish that was only saying, we're going to give you a solo game. We're going to maybe make the next campaign the cooperative mode, or we're going to make the next campaign the 1 versus 1 to actually fully flesh it out and give it time. Because otherwise you sit in development hell and, you know, you get the game in 2 years. Or if Awakened Realms does, and I didn't look at this very much either way on that side of things, if they're going to do 1 wave or 2 wave. But that'd be my also fear. Like, is if you get like the Aether Fields effect, where you've got a completely different revamped edition by the time you get the second wave, if you're the 1 wave shipping in the first place. So it's expensive. I won't argue this. Again, it's a premium product, and you're going to get a premium component upgrades with some of the miniatures of the standees or whatever they're including with each of these core boxes in that sense. But again, it's going to be, your mileage may vary. If you like 1 versus alls, this is personally one of my favorites, if not my favorite 1 versus all. I have no qualms about telling you that, but it's not for everyone. This is not a game everyone is going to love. If you don't like 1 versus all, again, this is not going to change your opinion. If you didn't like the base game, this isn't going to change your opinion. If you do, though, it's worth a look-see, but you need to have a group to play this with, because it's going to be best from the meta side of things. And just like 1 versus all games that go across the board, if you're the most experienced person, you're going to play the 1. If you don't want to play the 1, you shouldn't buy this game. You shouldn't. Go play somebody else's copy where you can be the all. More contract modes, a 5-player mode. Oh, I didn't know about that. And, you know, you're just getting some stretch goals here. More custom content. They're allowing more custom content on the creation side of things. So take that for what it is. You know, it's an indie game. Actually, you know what? I did get retail. I think that was some of the deluxifications as we saw previously. And that was some of the off-putting thing, I think, for some of the original backers, is they didn't feel like they wanted the deluxifications as much. But I mean, that's why I also say you can support a publisher at retail rather than just crowdfunding. These are the guys that I had right there. And a few more others actually as well. So there you go. That's Beast. That's everything. I'm not even halfway down the page right now. I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. This is just a massive amount of content. I feel like the pictures just get bigger and bigger each week on the crowdfunding, each year on the crowdfunding side of things. But yeah, I mean, some cool miniatures again. Does it need miniatures? No, I'm Team Standee all the way. You know me, folks. And so I'll stay tried and true with that. There you go. Boom. Legion Games, baby. It slaps. I'm sorry, I didn't see that quote. Like I said, I totally didn't look at this page before doing this roundup, because I already knew like everything about the game, so I didn't feel the need to look at it. So Studio Mid-Hall, you got me on that one. You got me. I love it. I love it. And I love how it's huge too. That's the sort of quote I want on a board game page, on a campaign page, right? I'm done. I can't top that. I'll leave it right there. Slap. Go check it out for yourself. Let's go over to Vagrantsong. The other one I said that slaps this week, right? Weird Games. They sent me the prototype copy of this one too. Again, very, very similar to Beast in the sense that if you didn't like the base game, if you didn't like this crawler, as someone else said in the comment section the other day, maybe more of a skirmisher, but I really think it's more of a crawl-based scenario situation. It's not going to change your mind, but it's got more stuff. It's got absolutely massive amount of content on this. But again, probably like Beast, your mileage is going to vary, because you're going to go, okay, why do I need to get this on crowdfunding? And again, not having looked at this page because I already knew all the details of the game itself, we'll explore it with you firsthand right here. And that's the question. Do you want more of this? Because if you love this game is going to give you more of what you loved. If you didn't like it in the first place, it's not going to change your mind. But it is one of the most unique, different spins on a dungeon crawl aspect that I've ever seen. And I really enjoy it. I love the chaos. I love the difficulty. Some people were saying that it was too easy. I'm just a bad gamer apparently then. So, that's what you need to know. But you're taking things in a different way, because you're not actually trying to destroy the enemies. You're trying to actually save them and gift them or hurt them with humanity, right? You're giving them humanity. It's making them more human. You're saving these spirits that have been corrupted on this death train that is the Hell Train, right? If you've ever read Tower of God manga, Hell Train saga, you know what I'm talking about. Let me know if you're a Tower of God person in the fan comment sections down below. right? Comment down below. I have 2 Tower of God shirts. If anyone knows where to get good Tower of God merchandise, also shoot me a message. I'm all for it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyway, it's like second only to like One Piece. Anyway, but more scenarios, right? Tons of stuff. You're getting a new chapter, new scenarios, new short trip mode. The short trip mode is sort of basically trying to streamline it out so you're not doing as much base camp in between the actual scenarios themselves. And I guess the question I was wondering, are you actually getting more vagrants? I don't really know if you're getting more vagrants, but if your vagrants die, essentially, you have an ability now to do a separate little side mission to try and save them. Just more of everything else. A couple new mechanics here. Baggage cards, sort of like your ex brings with you. Boom, did that in the other video the other day. So that's not original, but I actually used it on that one. So go check that one out as well. There's 1 or 2 people that actually commented and they caught that. Just shows you how many people are paying attention when I make these videos in the first place, right? New terrain tokens, new enemy terrain tokens, as well as Smoky Bones. Smoky Bones are basically like a super upgraded success version, but they can also nullify your successes on your dice rolls in the first place. And what you're doing is you're basically die rolling and going across, and there's this drawback of actions, not only things that you could rummage through to use for actions for yourself, but then it's also a unique AI system that the AI system as the Haints are going to have 2 different moods, and depending on what token you draw is going to depend on what action they take, and it's really random, and so you need to be aware of that. But it's got a unique board system that's going to be utilizable on all 4 sides, and turn trackers on all sides in that fence, as well as events that are going to be randomly drawn from that token bag, randomly occurring depending on the around trackers and the humanity trackers, but also randomly appearing on the map themselves in the first place. So it's got a ton of stuff going on. It's absolutely classic game, but again, it's a campaign driven scenario game. If you have too many of these, this one again probably shouldn't be in your collection, but it's doing so much cool stuff that I can't also not talk about it being cool. And that's okay. But again, this one isn't going to change your mind if you didn't like the first time around. So what are we talking about price point wise right now? Pick and choose if you want a little bit of that stuff. I really want the Stuffy. Do they have the Stuffy on sale on the campaign page here? So you get both expansions for $65. Yeah, I mean, that's expensive. That's expensive for 2 expansions, but with the amount of content that you're basically getting more than what the base game, I think, has originally in that sense. That's actually not a horrible deal. Another $65 gets you the core game. I think that the core game is a little bit less expensive at some of the retailers online. So I guess I would say this is probably your best bet, but then you're going to roll the dice and see whether or not it's going to be less than 65 at retail and down the line. So, yeah, 48 hours gets you, what is that? Mother of, nail pin. Okay, that's kind of cool looking. I want the Stuffy. Is the Stuffy on here? Weird Games. Did you put the Stuffy on here? Again, all of the little, some exclusive stuff as well. A little bit of extras. Yeah. So, neoprene mat? Oh, that's an add-on though. Okay, never mind. If you were including the neoprene mat with a $65 pledge level, I'd say that's a really good value otherwise. You're getting a little bit of exclusive stuff, but not a ton of stuff. Oh, there's the plushie. Yes, that plushie looks awesome. I think I'm going to maybe get it. Anyway, seance scenarios, more stuff. Again, it's just solid. And so I have no qualms about saying it. Yeah, I think mine's right there. Boom. So there you go. There you go. There's my quote as well. It takes it, reiterates a clever uniqueness. I stand by that quote. So, yeah, I already said that though. I said it's unique. I said it's doing something different. So it's killing it. I mean, again, for a small company that is really known for their other miniature line of things, not really their board game side of things, this is a very, very fresh take on things. So I give them kudos. But again, buy at your own discretion and your own will. Final Girl, again, second biggest one of this week now. This is Series 3. This is Marvel United Series 3. Oh, just kidding. Final Girl, just kidding. Now, they're offering 5 different individual expansions to mix and match with all the other stuff that you've got previously with this campaign, although they're actually offering a 6th one, which is sort of a stretch goal that the more they hit in terms of the stretch goals, the cheaper it's going to be. You may even get it free at some point if they actually hit a high enough funding goal. What is that funding goal? They haven't really revealed that yet. So essentially what you've got going on is you've got your action system followed by your planning system. And what you do is you mix and match locations and bad guys. And you're trying to save victims until you get to the final endpoint, and it's a kill or be killed. So you either kill the killer or the killer kills you in this solo game. I compare it to Marvel United, tongue-in-cheek, but also I compare it to Marvel United very seriously because this has so much content, so much expansion content, and they actually play off of that right down here. They say, like, if you want to mix and match all of these, you will have 700,342 different combinations, or 225, depending on how facetious I'm feeling today. But that's the sort of thing. Do you actually need 15 expansions to be able to back and forth this? Is this a solo game like Hoplomachus, where this is more of a lifestyle solo game as well? I will make the argument that Awakened Realms is Dragon Eclipse is more of a lifestyle game. I can see you easily going going through that as a scenario driven on off style of things. But because it's dedicated solo, also you're really going to have to play it frequently in order to get the full thing. But it's more like Marvel. This one is more like Marvel United in that sense, because I feel like you can play this one off, mix and match, and do however you want, just like Marvel United, more so than a lot of the other strictly solo heavier games from that aspect. And so what you're doing in this is you have an action phase and then followed by a plan phase. Action phases, you're going to be playing cards in order to take actions, move around, and go places on the location board itself. The killer board is going to be completely separate as well. And then after you take your actions, and they're going to cost certain time, you have the ability to do the planning phase, which is basically allowing you to do other actions, even though they're planning phase of things, that are all going to cost you time. And as you use time, it's going to progress. And then after you do all of that, the killer's turn also goes, and he's going to flip up some random stuff and going to maybe even attack you or take out victims or have other consequences on the board in the first place. It's very random though, and so you need to know that. And a lot of your action-based system is dice rolling in the first place, and it's going to be somewhat mitigatable, but also somewhat not mitigatable. And what I mean by that is you're going to have a varied level of success. And so like 1s and 2s is a fail, 3 and 4s is a mild success, 5s and 6s are like a better success. And so depending on how you want to do things or how you want to mitigate it with like discarding other cards or, you know, using some abilities to change that result, that may be what you want to do or not what you want to do. Now they run you through the 5 different module expansions that are going to be here. Then they get down to the stretch goals here. This is the North Pole Nightmare campaign. This is the one I talked about at the beginning that they're potentially looking at maybe getting in there free. So we're going to see what that entails, but the gameplay isn't any different. It's just a combinatorial set of things. And I guess Blessing Curse, unlike the Marvel United Season 3, where Marvel United Season 3 continued to add mechanics, this doesn't appear to be adding mechanics. It just appears to be adding stuff. So do you want all the stuff? Do you want the minis that goes along with it? Because this is going to cost you, again, just Series 3, $179 for everything. People really like this. This is a really well-rated solo game, but do you really need that much? And that's the question. Because now we've talked about 2 or 3 very, very heavy, very, very extensive, overhead price-wise also heavy solo games. How many of these solo games, just like from a solo game standpoint, how many of these other campaign multiplayer games can you have as well? So take it for what it is. People really love it. I'm not a solo gamer, like I've said many times, and so this one's an easy pass for me, but again, it's killing it. It's going to have a couple $1 million by the end, so there you go, Final Girl. So this is actually looking like a great solid game, but this is also probably the heaviest game on this week, or maybe even this month that I've seen, and it doesn't appear that way on initial glance, and this is Millennia. From, they say, as you can see there, the creators of Clans of Caledonia. Now, there's a little asterisk behind that because this actually says, if you go a little bit lower, that it was created by 2 separate people and then it was refined by the designer of Clans of Caledonia. So take that for what you will, but this is from Karma Games. And so it's got $60,000 for a game that I had never even heard of prior to this. I didn't even, barely find it on Board Game Geek. So it's like fresh off the press here. And so what do you need to know? And interestingly enough, I remember now, if you think back, I think it was like the Fiefdom game, also by Karma Games earlier in the year, because they said they were going to do a series of 3 crowdfundings. And so the Clans of Caledonia expansion is actually supposedly going to be in November. So if I'm remembering correctly, there's not really a whole lot of incentive to back this one, or just like there wasn't a whole lot of incentive to back the previous one right now, because you can get them in the pledge manager or you can get in later for the exact same price, and they're all going to be shipped together as well. So there really wasn't a whole lot of incentive, but this is a very intriguing concept. When I look at this is what I thought of originally, like what Tapestry was going to be, but this is like Tapestry on steroids. Now I say that because there's a 42, doesn't matter which number it is, 40 something page rule book over here on the campaign page that is just absolutely massive, because each of these rounds, you're playing over like a series of 3 rounds, but each of these rounds has like, I don't know, like, what is it, 10 phases, 8 phases? I forget which one it is. I'm blurring it all together with Kavango now, which we'll talk about in a second. But you're basically taking these cards, drafting them in turn order, and then utilizing them with their heavy iconography in order to gain prosperity and gain victory points as you go along. But you're going to be gaining victory points as well as losing victory points as well, depending on how well you do on a round by round basis. But this is a very heavy game because all of these phases are, relatively not compact. They have a lot going on in each single phase, and you're going to be having to manage this with a heavier Euro style mechanistic approach. And how do you feel about that? Again, the iconography looks beautiful. It reminds me sort of like an Arc Nova in a Civ building sort of way, but it's got sort of a different vibe altogether, as you can see here. You've got several different types of buildings. You've got several different types of wonders, everything you're going to be utilizing, going across to trying to get this filled out. And like I said, you're going to be drafting, set collecting with the iconography. And again, the iconography is going to be really heavy, and there's going to be a lot of stuff on there because this is basically almost like language independent when it comes to the cards themselves. And you're going to be slowly constructing these wonders and buildings as you go along to, well, like I said, prosper the best, because prospering is going to be depending on what round and what actions are out there, but then what's also on sort of your set collection tableau in the first place. It's got a lot of stuff. Lot of stuff, lot of stuff, lot of stuff. It's card driven. It's very heavy. You can see this, how busy this board is right here on this little GIF right here as well. But that's the question. I was looking at this super heavy. I got really interested in this one when I was pulling up the page earlier. And then I started reading the rule book, and I got about halfway through the rule book and I said, whoa, I'm only halfway. Holy crap, Batman. Now, stretch goals, a little bit of extras, a little bit of deluxifications, and that's sort of the thing with Thiefdom 2. There you go, a little more deluxifications. Language, they've got the rulebook down here, a couple previews as well if you want, and then that's about it. And it's going to cost you how much money right now? I mean, actually, relatively reasonable amount, $31. So it's just a question of, as a heavy card game driven Civ builder, I don't know. This is heavier than probably a lot of the other style of things I have like this in my collection, and I would worry that it's almost too heavy, and that would be my one concern. So this one's like on my wish list now, but it's more of a, I might end up trading for it post-campaign, or I might end up trying to get a copy somewhere else rather than necessarily doing it, but I think it looks really good. But again, it's probably a little too heavy for me to actually analyze fully well. And so you heavy guys that are looking at this, go watch some of the video and let me know in the comment section down below what you think of it or how off base I am from that side of things. But I had to talk about it because it looks fantastic on the surface at least. So there you go. Dark Tomb, Bloodthorn Island. This is like a mini, like portable tin-based dungeon crawl, they say. And all you have are these little square cards, and you flip them over in whatever sort of configuration that the main card tells you to do. And you move your little cubes across the board, and you have like anywhere from 1 to 5 players that are going to be doing that. And then you have little actions because you have little abilities that you can take, but you can only take an ability one time, and then you have to do something else on your next turn. And so you go back and forth until you kill all the monsters and you've revealed all of these tiles in the first place. And you go through several different scenarios, and it's sort of a dungeon crawl in the sense that everything heals up and you get all your stuff back in between scenarios or levels as well, and you go for as long as you can. It's tin-based, it's small box. I don't think it got wide retail. If you go over to the website here, you can actually see that the first design or the first edition is actually sold out. So this is like a standalone second expansion from that. And you just kind of runs you through a little bit of what's here though. And you know, it says these are the actions that you take. You set it up in that configuration like I mentioned. Shows you a little bit of the combat with some rolling there as well. A little bit of stretch goal from content wise, a few preview videos, but that's it. Unfortunately, you actually go over to the Dark Tomb page here and it actually has a better rules layout. Now again, it's not actually a huge rules layout whatsoever, so I'm a little confused why they just didn't throw it on the page. It's a little irritating, but that seems to be the theme of this week, is not putting some of that useful information on pages. I would like to see that, but clearly it has an appeal, has an appetite from a backer standpoint. 1,200 people and $33,000, forking impressive for a game again I had never heard of prior to today. So apparently I'm the only one though, but people like it. Dark Tomb, check it out. Now we're going Canopy. And again, just like Dark Tomb here, there is next to no information on what makes this game tick on the page itself. And that's very irritating because I had to go over to Geek Dad's website page preview of it and actually get the information there. And he does a decent breakdown of, this is the differences between Canopy and Canopy Evergreen. This is how Canopy Evergreen actually plays, because, you know, unfortunately, I know I have to say this here, there's no information on the page. Like, if I'm putting out a standalone expansion of a game, you know, what makes this different? Why get this one? And unfortunately, there's just not a ton of that on this page. You know, it says that this one, unlike Canopy Original, was more of a 2-player-esque game, really designed more for that. And they say this one is better at 3 and 4, or more designed for 3 or 4 in this set collection drafting style game. And so what you're doing essentially is you're very, very similar, but they've also upgraded some aesthetic, which has also upgraded the price a little bit, because you're actually going to be building these 3D trees as part of your mechanistic approach as the tree building set collection sort of aspect in the first place. But it's still going to be utilizing very similar mechanisms in addition, or other aspects of the same mechanisms, in the sense that you're going to have wildlife, you're going to be growing these forests, you're going to be building your little ecosystem with dealing with threats and weather conditions, and just the set collection in about 3 or 4 different ways as you go along. And they run you through a little bit of what the deluxifications are as well. Here, the 3 to 4 player, they say, okay, has a little bit different draft order than previously, because essentially what you've got is you've got 3 piles out in the middle, and you're going to be able to look at all 3 of these piles in your turn, but you have to do them sequentially. So if you look at the first pile and don't like it, you go to the second pile. You go to the second pile, you don't like it, you go to the third pile. You go to the third pile, don't like it, and then you have to draw a card off the top of the deck. And every time you look at a pile and don't take it, then you have to add a card essentially to that pile. So then the next time a person goes and looks at it, it's going to have more cards, it's going to be more tempting, but you're going to have to deal with all of the cards in the pile. You can't take partial piles. styles. And so that's the main crux of this game in a nutshell. And again, even the retail is going to have these deluxe trees. I mean, again, they make a big deal of Vincent Dutrait's art, which is absolutely freaking fantastic. You see, again, very similar mechanisms with the animals, the weather cards, and the plants that you're going to be utilizing. Now, they say one difference is that you're going to be having actually a starting animals on your tableau in the first place, and then you're going to be sort of doing a little bit of different mechanistic approach with some of those animals. But again, as you can see on this page, there's not really any emphasis on that at all. Quotes, videos, add-ons for poker cards, and that's it. And so that's okay. But again, like if I didn't go over to Geek Dad's preview link, wherever it was, I wouldn't have a clue how to play this one or what was actually different from it from the get-go. And, you know, again, that's just stuff that I think needs to be on the page, especially if you're making a game that's based off of another game. As a backer, I would like to see that. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm the only one. But there's no other rules on this page either. So again, that was the one that really showed me more information on it. So there you go, Canopy Evergreen. Transmissions, second printing. Again, $27,000 out of $40,000, and so I'm really hoping this one funds, because this one is like an indie game, and don't just quote me, right? It has the Dice Tower seal of excellence, but this is one I've always had on my radar that I just couldn't quite pull the trigger on the first time around. It's sort of got a Rondel worker-esque vibe, worker placement-esque vibe, I mean, but it's more Rondel action management style of things going on with a little bit of set collection, because essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be moving these robots around the board, and you can choose any one of the robots based on the card that you play on your turn. And so as you move them, they're going to end up in different spaces on the board, and these spaces are going to have different actions that you can take, and these actions are going to give you different resources or different ways of set collecting, things that are going to be able to be utilized, or subsequently using sort of an action comboing resource management system. So you're going to get like little resources that are going to allow you to buy pipes or place pipes into your pipe connections, but you may not be able to place the pipe connection, so then you have to turn it face down, and maybe that's going to get you points at the end game because you can't use it, as opposed to connecting, getting more bonus points in game in terms of the scoring. And the 3 end game scoring conditions are going to be things that are also going to be providing you victory points along the way. You have to build all your robots, you have to build all of the pipes that are present of the things that you can collect along the way, or you run out of ideas, because ideas are going to be the action mechanisms that each of these robots are going to uniquely have that you can utilize on a turn-by-turn basis. And so you're going to be doing a combination of that in this game in the first place. Again, artwork's fantastic. The aesthetic is absolutely incredible. I love it. It's got the metal robot add-on. I feel like that's more though than it was last time. I could be wrong. It gives you a brief overview here. You can download the rules. There's plenty of content from the first time around as well. And that's pretty much it though. It's a second printing, and so there's no stretch goals, there's no other content. It's doing something slightly tweaked here in terms of the gameplay mechanics that they saw the first time around that could have been improved, and that's it. But this is an indie game, never went to retail, and it really is on my short list. As you can see, it's saved right here, and so we'll see where it goes. Hopefully it starts getting closer to funding here in the next day or two. Hopefully by the time you guys are watching this, it's already funded, and whether or not I decide to plunge in and get it. So there you go, Transmissions, second printing. Next up, Creature Caravan. Again, staying with the same theme of a couple games earlier, where I don't think there's enough information on the page for me to actually make a good decision about this game in the first place. And they're offering a lot of other stuff, which I remember them doing sort of a poll in the first update prior to the campaign launching of saying, what else do you want to see in this campaign? But also holding the cards close to the vest and not really telling you what this game or this campaign was really going to be about. And I know there's been a robust playtest system in the setup of this, because it's over on the Board Game Geek forums where they're talking about it, and there are people talking about it from that aspect. But, you know, you're going to get an expansion for 5 to 6 players, which actually has gameplay content. Like, not a huge fan of that. You're getting a new edition of Islebound with a new resource as well as new deluxifications, and they offer you some premium other promos and a little bit of extras from some of the other games that they've done as well in the past. Like I said here, Rome is getting some stuff, Above and Below is getting some stuff, City of Iron is getting some stuff if they hit those stretch goals. So you're not actually getting any stretch goals for the actual game content itself, which again is fine, because there are plenty of other companies that don't do that as well, that just offer you a better price point. But when you get down here, you see that this is sort of going to be a Wayfarers of South Tigris situation, if you're familiar with that game, where you're going to be traversing across the main map, and as you get to the end, that's going to be the end game scoring condition. But as you go across, you're going to be trying to complete various objectives, as well as gather sort of your tableau in the form of creatures that are going to help you perform better. And they talk about hundreds of card combos here, right? Hundreds of card combos. What do those card combos look like? How are those card combos going to work? Why are there positives and negatives on these numbers? What are these numbers in the upper left hand corner? What do they mean? I don't know, because there's absolutely no information on how this game plays on the actual page itself, because immediately after that it goes into Islebound, then it goes into the RPG, then it goes into the RPG, then it goes to the pledge levels, all the add-ons that you can get right now, and then it gives you a couple videos from Rado, and that's forking it. and they don't even give you a decent shipping cost at this point. They say if you want everything new, it's going to be $30. If you want anything else, we have no idea. I mean, this was a game that is like actually something I'm super interested in. But you have one video, you have no rulebook, you don't tell me anything mechanistically how about it is, you don't tell me how the phases are played, you don't tell me what the mechanisms are going to be utilized. There's a better description over on the Board Game Geek page, Red Raven, than on the actual campaign page. And now I'm hopeful that you're going to have some stuff out by the end of the campaign, but again, this doesn't make me want to back it. You're getting a lot of people that are fanboys of this, and there are a lot of people that are fanboys of this, just like Chip Theory, just like Awakened Realms, just like Simon. Like, Red Raven has a very, very rabid following, just like Stonemeyer. And so, again, I want to like this game. I want to be interested more in this game. I see absolutely nothing to entice me right now, apart from it's got creatures and it's a tableau building sort of system that I enjoy in the first place. But why and how much? And again, is it going to be, you know, what is it down here? Pledge levels. You know, it's going to be what, $50 plus, I don't even see it. It doesn't even have a pledge level for just the new game. They really are going for the get more of a stuff all at once. So I don't really like that. I don't really like that much at all, especially if you're marketing this and calling it the Creature Caravan campaign, when you don't even have a pledge level just for Creature Caravan and you only have it on the add-ons. I don't like that. I think that's just not a great case in this situation. I don't begrudge, you know, if you want some of this other stuff. I've never played Islebound. Islebound's been out of print for a while, and, you know, I know people like it. So I'd love to play it, but I'm not going to spend whatever, like $130 to find out if both of these games are right for me. That's too expensive nowadays. I have too many great games already that I know I'm going to like. And so to take a chance on it, I can't do that right now, especially without more concrete freaking information. Again, say this as someone who wants to know more. So there you go, Creature Caravans. Next up, we have Founders, 44,000 of its funding goal. I have a copy sitting on my counter that just came in last weekend, so I'll be having a video sometime out during this campaign. But this is sort of a tile-laying prequel to the other game that just was received by backers from this way called Ice. And sort of difference in this case is it's less worker placement, it's more tile placement. And what you're going to be doing as a secret alliance, you're going to be having two different victory conditions that you're going to be managing. And you're going to be having a partner on the left and the right that you're going to be trying to cooperate with. But you're going to have potentially a secret alliance with someone else that's around the circle of the board that you're going to be having to combine the scores of, because your objective is going to have like a color and their objective is going to have a color, and they're going to be scoring in different ways, but you're going to have the combo of both of those scores in order to get the full endgame score. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be laying these tiles in sort of a manner that's not really, unfortunately, totally clear on the page. And again, if I didn't have a copy of this game on my counter, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you this much either, because again, there's no rule book yet out on this page in the first place. They have one of their little stretch goals down here at the bottom that's going to have a tabletop simulator mod, or Tabletopia, or a Tabletopia mod here in a little while when they unlock it. But you've got sort of that aspect of things going on. And I have just the general standard base game prototype right now. And so you're going to have an asymmetric character, you're going to have districts, you're going to have color cards, as well as these different color districts that you're going to be laying down on this main hexagonal board in the first place. One of the other expansion / stretch goals is a 5 to 6 player edition, and the deluxe edition here, that's going to give you a little bit of the usual deluxeifications, as you will. This is the 5 player one, I think, or maybe this one is. And again, just giving you more content, giving you a little bit of everything, as well as it looks like some legacy rules there in addition. But again, this one suffers from a little bit of lack of information on the actual page itself. You're designing it, placing new city tiles. They tell you about the design and the color cards here that are your objectives and how you're going to be winning, and they're unique to you. And then the layout and the orientation is going to have to be very carefully placed as you're putting them on the board in the first place to create different combinations of these hexagonal grid-based systems in the first place. The hidden alliances that I mentioned, as well as trying to deduce what other people are doing, because you're trying to figure out who's going for the same thing as you so you don't sabotage them or they don't sabotage you. Asymmetric abilities that you're going to get with the character cards that I mentioned previously, and a couple of videos that are going to give you more information on the actual gameplay itself. But again, I wish there was a little bit more information on this, like what makes this different in the tiling? How is this tiling unique? Why do I want this tiling over something else tiling? So hopefully I will be able to address all of those questions in my video, but it would be really nice to have those in the campaign page in the first place. And whether or not it's right for you is a completely abject thing otherwise, but I want to make sure you're buying stuff that you absolutely love, not just, you know, FOMOing or guessing, because guessing should not be done on crowdfunding, let alone retail. But there you go. Founders, more information to come from me, so there you go, check it out. Next up, Battle Card, $10,000. I mean, this is amazing. Speaking of solo games that are killing it, this is probably the most surprising solo game of the week, and this is from Postmark, which has done a couple other games that I've really been a big fan of, including Aquamarine Voyages. And this is a solitaire 5 micro game, 1-page card-driven system where you use a certain number of D6s, and you have, 5 turns or 6 turns? 6 turns, I think, per game, and you're just having to make objective decisions based on what actions are available to you on a turn-by-turn basis. And you're going to be sacrificing, you're going to be attacking, you're going to be defending each of these different World War II playable battle scenarios that are, driven or that are given to you in the first place. They give you digital format, they give you the print and play format, however you want to do. They actually say you need a certain number of dice for each of these. So like the first one needs like 11, the second one needs 9. They tell you about that down below, and they run you through a little bit of the differences here. Now they only show you what the first 2 are that are completely ready, and they show you that you're going to be getting a total of 5 by the end of the campaign, or when your delivery is actually due, whenever the game content is done, I guess, whatever. But you have one of the powers during Second World War, and you're going and you're seeing how this actions and choices and decisions are going to be able to be manipulated and utilized through a turn-by-turn basis system, which is relatively short, relatively sweet, and maybe a lot easier than other solo games that we've talked about today on the video. So take that for what you will. But again, there are, rules on here. There's a print and play, I think, that you can probably get as well by the end of the campaign. Postmark puts out good stuff. It's got mixed ratings over on Board Game Geek, so the real question is, does it have enough depth for you? Does it have enough length in terms of staying power? But 1-page solitaire solo World War II game. There you go, $10,000. It's freaking amazing. There you go, check it out. Next up, we have Kavango, which looks like a combination of Seven Wonders and Ark Nova having a baby. And you'll understand why I say that in a second, but this is the other most intriguing game to me that really was flying under the radar this week as a whole, because it's already got $63,000, which again is very impressive, but it's got the nature theme, which seems to be all the rage as well right now. Essentially what you've got 3 rounds that you're going to be drafting a set of potentially up to 10 cards, depending on the player count. And so typically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drafting each of those 10 cards to your tableau, but your tableau is going to be very set collection, iconography heavy. And so what you're going to be having to do is you're going to have to slowly build this up through this use of the icons in order to be able to actually get them down on your set in the first place. But don't be fretting, because if you can't actually play the card that you're drafting, you can save it for potentially putting it down later if it's an animal or a creature that you cannot use, because they're going to have a protected ecosystem in order to have enough of the certain symbols down in the first place in order to utilize them. They're going to have passive abilities, they're going to have active abilities, they're going to give you ways to change sort of the rules of the game in the first place. And you're going to be having a lot of the producers, a lot of the plants, a lot of those things in the first rounds. And the second 2 rounds are mainly made up of the animals that are going to be giving you additional benefits. But you're also going to be having to buy things like protection and gain money in order to be able to, 1, protect your delicate ecosystem from poachers and things like that, but also in order to build some of the more expensive ones or the more valuable ones in the later rounds. And it's going to be a little bit more expensive as a small indie publisher game from that aspect of things. It's going to cost you about $60 just to get the special edition right now. And the special edition has just a little bit of extras in addition to what you're going to be getting with I'm assuming what the standard retail version of is as well. So what you've got going on here is you've got all of this stuff being included. Let's talk about the deluxe edition here. And the deluxe edition is going to be even more. It's going to be about $80 at this point as well. So it's going to give you just basically the usual deluxifications that you'd expect. A few stretch goals here, but very much more deluxification oriented in that sense. And like I said, you've got your setup, you've got this big board that you're going to be slowly laying these down on. And now the set collection laying down isn't actually as important as just having symbols in the first place. And so that's where it's a little bit different as a whole. You're not having to like put them in a certain order or arrange them in a certain way in order to get the bonuses. They're just laying them down, and they actually just say in the rulebook to lay them down accordingly, like to a similar set, so it helps you score them a little bit easier. And so then what you're going to be doing is these 3 rounds of 10 turns where you're drafting the cards like I mentioned. You're also going to have some research as well as some in-game objectives as well as some end-game objectives that are all going to give you victory points in different ways. But essentially what you're doing in your turn, like I mentioned, is drafting, playing, doing the research, the additional bonus points, if you will. The money that you're going to be making, you can use to get the protection and the rewilding, as I mentioned, and then at the end of the game, you just have the most victory points. Whoever has the most wins, obviously. A bunch of quotes, a couple movies, a couple videos to go along with that. And it's going to get you some stretch goals again, which isn't necessarily convincing with the stretch goals right now, but it's an indie publisher, and the question more is this going to be widely available at retail? I only worry that it's going to be a little too AP prone if it is a combination more of the Ark Nova, but it looks a little bit simpler and more straightforward with the iconography as a whole, because it's not really as much going on as some of those other games we've already seen this week as well. So, I mean, it seems solid. No complaints. It's just going to be, can you afford to guess and wait at retail that this is going to be less than, again, you're talking $75 just for the standard edition. And that's an expensive card-based game, even more so than Dragon Eclipse, the standard version right now. So it's doing great. It's actually fantastic, but Is it going to be exactly what you want? Is it going to be heavy enough if you're looking for something more like Arc Nova? Is it going to be too light? And also for the price point, that's expensive in the first place. So think about it. There you go. Next, we're talking Theme Park Mania. Build a theme park together. Again, from a new designer. This is Meeple Master. Again, you're building this cooperative theme park-based situation where you're going to be slowly laying these tiles down, trying to build a certain number of rides and visit all of those rides in the first place to score the end game condition. And so what you've got going on here is you've got, what does it say, 45 to 2 hours for this 2 to 4 player game. You're going to be slowly building the park, building roads, paths, structures, rides in the first place. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to build a certain number of rides, but also visit a certain number of rides. And you have 5 main actions that are available to you at the beginning of the game. A lot of them are building said things in the first place. But then after 4 rides have been built, again, you are not necessarily limited to the rides you are built, but you have to go and visit all of the rides in order to gain victory points. But then you're going to be also giving money or fares or victory points to people who's built the rides in the first place. And you're going to have to balance that dynamic to be the best one at the end. And you have to visit all of them, not just the ones that you built, before the end game triggers in the first place. So it's going to be a little bit of cooperative in that nature as well. Like I said, here's the stuff that you're building and all of the nature of the things that you're doing in the first place. Move, build, build. And then the 5th and 6th actions get unlocked after those first 4 rides get opened. And again, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. The base game with stretch goals and the pin here is going to be $50. And the Super Deluxified version is going to cost you, $75, which is pretty much, again, all deluxifications. So that'd be the question. If you don't want deluxifications, this one's probably an easy pass as well. We're seeing a lot of that this week. There is a rulebook on here, but I'll be honest, I think you're going to have to watch a little bit of the video content down here. The rulebook doesn't give me, unfortunately, the best flow of how these mechanisms are going to be taken together and how the turn-by-turn basis is going to be linked. And so you may have to watch one of these previews. It's very preview heavy this week, if you haven't noticed. Lots of previews on a lot of these pages. So again, shipping is going to be really expensive, actually. So if you're in North America, you're outside Europe right now, for even the deluxified version right now, you're going to be looking at $100. And that's a pretty penny from a new designer. With a theme park theme. And not, again, that there's anything wrong with theme parks, but it sort of gives me an fair vibe with more of a Euro style approach as opposed to a chaotic driven Amerithrash approach, which again is fine, but there's a lot out there that does similar. And so that would be my only question, is how much better or what difference is that necessarily from the other action optimization Euro style games that are more well established. So thematically sounds nice, but beware, there is some take that as well that you have the ability to potentially mitigate depending on what cards or what actions you have at your disposal. So there you go, Theme Park Mania. Next up, you may remember the other wood-based tower stacking games, the Moku games. This is very similar. This is Tawa. It's just basically more of a travel version of it, if you will. Now, they say you've got the solo, competitive, and cooperative versions of this, but essentially what you're doing is you're rolling a die and creating a tower based on the die roll number that you get in the first place. You get bonus points depending on how high your tower is, but also if you have certain combinations of these little wooden pieces, if you use them correctly, or you choose more difficult ones depending on what's laid out there. And that's essentially what it is. It's a travel edition of that game in the first place. This is going to be their last tower stacking game. And it's not going to cost you too much either, but it is going to be a little expensive for a little travel size game in the first place. But just like their other previous games that have done well in crowdfunding and raised a significant amount of money, there is definitely an aesthetic and a cute value, as well as just kind of cool atmosphere game style of situation. Really, the question with this is, if you have all these modes, are you going to play one? Now, they have a little bit of a cooperative bonus mode where you can actually steal points from each other or get bonus points depending on if you're doing competitive or cooperative. But that's basically the game in a nutshell. They give you a little bit of extras and add-ons that you can do. They can do the other stacking games as well, if you're familiar with those, with the original Moku and the Moku Endless Tower column. So that's it. You want a purse to go along with it? Cloth bag, I apologize. That's it. That's what you need to know. It's an early bird. It's a not early bird. They talked it through the design process. It's very pretty aesthetically pleasing wood, but is it going to find its niche in your collection? Or is it more of like a coffee table sort of conversational topic inducer? So there you go. Anyway, check it out. Tawa. Going back over to GameFound here, we have Bone Wars, which again is funded. It's almost at 50,000 euros at the time of me filming this. You may remember Phasalis from Kids Table Board Games. This reminds me of more of a heavy Euro style game of that, because essentially what you're doing is you're taking these different actions in order to dig fossils over a series of like 6 states on a turn-by-turn basis. You've got like 3 separate sets of cards that you're going to be taking on your turn-by-turn action system, but each of these cards is going to have a different set of actions. You actually have one card that's going to give you the options of combinations of 6 actions. You have another set of cards that's going to give you a combination of 4 main board actions, as well as another set of cards that's going to give you additional actions that are actually going to be able to use for bonus points or special events, but they may cost you as well because you may lose out on special events or special point scoring issues or opportunities if you use them at the wrong time. And it's played over 4 rounds that you're going to be doing this on a turn-by-turn basis. And like I said here, you have the team cards that have the 6 different actions, the paleontologists, which have the 4 different actions, and then the species cards, which allow you to do both of those types of actions that I already mentioned in a combination, but you're going to have to sacrifice being able to get these bonus points from the theory or the finds, depending on when you do it. Twice, you're going to be scoring big stuff during the game, so you want to time when you're doing some of these actions appropriately. That's kind of all we know, though. Watch the Learn to Play, because that's about all the information on the page itself. It's from Game Brewer. There is no rule book. They give you this sort of this huge Venn diagram of what you want deluxified or not deluxified, but even the base game is going to cost you over $70 right now at this point. So without a whole lot more information hands-on and without a rule book, that's a pretty expensive price point as we're seeing this week. But again, it's clearly got an audience. I didn't think paleontology was that popular, but I am wrong once again, because this is $50,000 at the time of filming this. And you know what? Say what you will, that's a success. So I wish there was more information. It seems to be a common theme this week, but there you go. A few more, I wasn't kidding here, and we're going through a lot of games this week. I know, right? Sirens, Defrag, and 16 Candles. This is a tiny game series. You have 3 in 1, and all 3 of these are going to be different thematically as well as mechanistically. And what you need to know about these games is that they're going to give you just a completely different approach from a small box size, if you will. What you got going on first here is Sirens, card drafting musical compositions. And what you're doing essentially is you're passing cards back and forth, drafting the cards that are going to give you notes. These notes are going to create songs, because as you have a root card or a single starting card that's out in front of you, you're going to be able to play them to the left or the right to create the song or the pattern matching that you're going to need in the first place to basically get the most points based on the beginning of round objective that you do each round. And you play over several rounds. Who gets the most points after all these rounds wins. Defrag is a puzzly scenario book that's more of a solo game, if you will, because essentially what you're doing, if we scroll down here, I can give you a bit of visual, that you have all these cards laid out in sort of a central grid. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing 2 cards from your deck and then placing it down in the center, which then allows you to manipulate your actions to match ones that are down there in the first place. And what you're gonna be doing is trying to set, collect, match in that sense to gain the biggest pile. And they're all going to have different icons on them, and you're going to score when you can no longer manipulate in those ways in the first place. And you're going to have to do that 4 times, 1 for each of the 4 symbols that are out there. Then you find out your total, and that's your end game score. The last one down here, if you go down and you see 16 candies, well, you literally can actually use candies in this game, because each person gets 16 candies, real or fake. And what you're essentially going to be doing is you're going to be doing a set collection sort of golf, if you're familiar with that basic card game, because each of these cards are going to have 2 different sides to them in terms of the tops and the bottoms, and they're each gonna have different values of certain colors of candies. And so when you think you have the most of a candy, you essentially say, hey, I think I got the most candy. Then everyone else gets 1 more turn. Then you declare and you show. If you have the least, you lose candy depending on the penalties that are in the corners themselves. If you lose all your candies, you're out. Last one standing wins. So that's what you got going on there. That's all 3 games right there. Rulebooks are on the pages, a couple of videos to show you how they play, a little add-ons, a little deluxifications as an incentive to get them on crowdfunding as well, a little bit of price point for the shipping, and print and play versions of them are going to be available as well for $8 total. So if you're interested in them, check it out. Siren seems like the most interesting to me personally, but your mileage may vary because they're only going to cost you $15 each. But just remember, as always, it does not save you $6 if you get all 3 if you buy 1 or 2 that you do not want in the first place. So just remember that. Now we're gonna go over here, Storyburg, an adventure storing deck building game. Again, this is very, very RPG-esque with deck building combined, if you will, because essentially what you're doing on your turn is you're going to be slowly upgrading your RPG style character through one of 3 main actions, but then also multiple optional actions, if you will. I mean, you're going to be like playing an event card or dealing with an event card, then you're going to either be defeating a monster or dealing with them, and you have several different multiple options, including leveling up, gathering resources, moving around, all of that sort of stuff. But it's very, very detailed. The rule book for this is actually about 32 pages, so it's a lot heavier than it actually appears in the first place. It's relatively straightforward though. It's a dice-based combat system. It's got upgrades. You're going to be equipping, changing out those cards as you acquire better equipment. And yeah, it just seems like something a little bit different, a little bit new-ish. But I think you're really going to have to watch some of the video as well. The rulebook is a bit longer than I expected, so if you really want to know, I'd actually probably check out one of these 2 previews here. Got a few upgrades here, mostly deluxifications as well, if you will, but it's doing something slightly different. I haven't really seen a storybook style of deck builder, if you will. So the question is, does it really work? And that's really the answer I don't have right now. So do you want something lighter RPG-esque in a deck building format? I don't know. Intriguing. But it definitely be a hands-on. Early bird here is going to get you $49 as well. And like I said, most of the deluxifications are your stretch goals. So retail, crowdfunding. Check it out if you want though. There you go, Storyburg. So last up this week, we're going over here actually to Backer Kit. I was exploring Backer Kit today out of all things. So Backer Kit, and I actually apologize, Detestable Games, quite a while ago, they sent me pre-copies, prototype copies of Neuroriders and Patzcuaro. And Cosmic Cow, I have no idea about, but they sent me the other two, I believe. And I want to talk about those for a second here as well. Actually, this isn't going to be the last one because I have a Mea Culpa next actually going on. So you have 3 games going on here. Dinos Riding Dodos is an absolutely amazing game, by the way, from Detestable Games. If you don't have a copy of that, and if you have kids, or if you just like the Mario Kart Lighter version, you need to check this out. But you have 3 essential games going on here. Cosmic Cows, where you're going to be having 10 cows to start out with, and you're going to be taking one of 3 main actions. You're going to be either invading or sort of guessing, if you will, or taking more cards to help you, because you're going to have secret planets that you're going to be basically managing as a number in front of you, and you can invade and, not invade, you can actually take actions that allow you to steal a number of cows from other players less than the number of the secret planet of the card in front of you. But then you can also invade. Basically, you can try and take over a certain number of planets of other people, and as you get more planets, obviously that's better. But you have to actually just kind of randomly guess what number is on their secret planet card, because you're gonna have multiple of these secret planets in a row. And so you're gonna go back and forth until the games end in terms of the bluffing aspect of this. Like I said, guessing their secret planet value and exploring new planets and trying to get more. And if you have more cows than your rivals at the end of the game, you win. The second one here is actually Neuroriders. This is probably one of the hardest tile laying games I've ever played, if I remember this correctly. And it's a very straightforward game, but the tile laying color combination and how you're actually moving across your little worker through these areas, depending on the color doors, and the point scoring is very low, but it's very intense because you're gonna have to match colored doors to colored doors, and if you don't do it, you're not gonna score hardly anything, but if you can do it, it's gonna get you bonus points. And as the rounds progress, you're actually gonna have to flip over previous areas to these black tiles, and they're going to be lost to you essentially, and you can actually have your character get penalized if they're stuck in that area in the first place. Like I said, don't be fooled by this one. This one's probably a much heavier game than it appears in the first place. And I think if you have any interest in a heavier but quicker tile laying game, check that out. Speaking of that, I actually have a copy here of Fled from the designer of Feudum, also a very heavy but quicker playing tile game. I'll have a video out on that sometime in the near future as well. And then the last one up here is probably the most appealing to me of all of them, is Patzcuaro, and this is kind of nice and cool. So what you have is you have a 3-tiered system of cards here that you're going to be slowly managing through, and as you circle through them, you're going to be taking the actions that are on the cards. But if you can't take the actions of the card, you actually have to move to an additional card. But you're going to be building this sort of pyramid card style selection system that you have, 4 in the bottom, 3 in the middle, and 2 on the top. And you're going to be going around taking these actions until you can no longer do so. You're going to be having different shop tile cards that are all going to have different actions on them. You're going to be having different objective cards that are going to give you different ways of scoring. And it's just kind of a cool theme too. The color scheme is awesome, and you're building your altar as you go along with those actions as you go. And it's probably the most appealing easily of the 3 of them for me from that side of things. So again, trio of games here, and you can get some of their other stuff. Oh, you can get Dinos Riding Dodos Dash. You know, and the weird thing, War for Chicken Island and Regroup Chicken Army. Regroup Chicken Army, if you have kids right now and they're of the middling but not double digits age, you know, anywhere from like 6 to 9, Regroup Chicken Army is an absolutely fantastic grid building game. I kid you not. My kids, it's one of their favorite games. No joke, and it plays in less than 10 minutes. So I highly recommend that one. Kiwi Chowdown, I have that. I haven't gotten through it nearly enough to be able to put a video out on it. You've already seen my video. If you haven't, go check it out. Dodo's Riding Dinos. I'm waiting to hopefully get a copy of Dodo's Riding Dinos Dodo Dash. That is a tongue twister because it just takes this one and makes it better. And it's standalone, and I can't wait to play it because my kids absolutely love Dodo's Riding Dinos as well. Again, absolutely fantastic from Detestable Games there. Didn't even realize their campaign was going on though. I just randomly browsed on Backer Kit this week and saw that this is going on. So a few deluxifications that are unlocked at the stretch goals, and shipping is, you know, actually pretty reasonable. So there you go. Check it out. Okay, this is my mea culpa. Unreliable Wizard. I did this the week it launched. Somehow it didn't make the editing floor. Like, it just got completely cut out. One of you astute subscribers over in the YouTube comments actually said, hey Chris, where's Unreliable Wizard? I'm interested in it. And, you know, Salt and Pepper Games. And I said, okay, you know, I'm backing it, you know, like, and then I scrolled through. I was like, oh, it was one of those where I just probably didn't include the timestamp for it. You know, I just completely missed it in the comment section. And no, it just got cut out. So Unreliable Wizard here. This is a Japanese trick-taking game. This is a Japanese solitaire game where you're basically gathering your magic spells in order to fight off little enemy minions. And you can see right there in the upper right-hand corner, like, I'm backer 1,127. How many backers are there? Yeah, 2,000. So you can see, like, I backed it a while ago, right? I wasn't kidding about that. And you have this 32 card, sort of a button shy deluxe, if you will, system that you're going to be using as you fight these demons, making your way to the Demon Lord and gaining these new magic cards as you go along. And it kind of got a lot of traction to get this amount of funding in the first place. So think about that for a second. It's got 50,000 euros with 2,000 backers. And I think one of the Dice Tower folks did a review of it as an import, and they really loved it. And Cardboard East, actually, I think did a review of it as well. And that might even be on this page. I can't remember at this point. But it just looks like a solid solo game. That's the caveat, though. That's why I'm only hesitating, because I don't really, as you've heard me say, even on this video, like, I don't solo a whole lot. But for price point, for pedigree, and for just ingenuity, I think it's doing something different in that sense. The only question is, are you willing to take the risk on it? Now, it's a little bit less risky than a lot of the other Japanese games I've backed, because, you know, I've had a couple stinkers rather lately. 2 of them I've been kind of let down that I got recently within the last like 3 to 4 months. But for this price, you know, 22 euros, including an expansion, this is one of those where I'm really having trouble avoiding doing it as well, right? And the expansion, they say, isn't even going to be available at retail. Yeah, there's Cardboard Easts. There, go give him some shout out. Dice Tower, boom, your boy was right. What else do you need to know about this game, though? So here's the rulebook as a whole, right? This is the whole rulebook in like 2.5 pages. Essentially what you're doing is you're laying these cards out in a grid-based system, and you're gonna have a certain number of ability cards, a certain number of magic cards, and a certain number of enemy cards, and you're gonna line them up sort of in a vertical column, and you're gonna lay on top of these ability cards on the right side here, the enemy cards and the demon cards, if you will. And as you defeat these demons, you're actually gonna regain health, and you're going to progress because you can move between these hexes one at a time. But when you have to actually fight, here comes the tricky part. The combat, again, I'm not totally clear about how you're lining up some of these abilities, because they're going to change depending on when you encounter them as you go along, or potentially even it kind of looks like what color you're encountering them on. But essentially what you're doing is the flow of the battle is you're drawing cards. Each card you draw from your deck actually saps your health. And so if you draw too many cards and your health was too low and you take too many damage because you don't defeat the enemy, you can get knocked out very easily. But what you have going on there is you decide then how many spells you want to use based on the cards you draw, and you can combine them to do a stronger attack. And they give you sort of the combinatorial system right here above my head here in terms of the magic you're attacking, the additional bonuses you may be getting, the resistance that the enemy has, and then the total damage that you're doing. And so you can see that, again, 5 total damage right there. And then if you knock them out, you actually gain the health back after you knock them out if you win the battle. And so you can actually use travel companions, you can get abilities, you can have different ways of mitigating in those regards, depending on what abilities or travel companions are actually present below the enemy that you just defeated. The other interesting thing is if you actually reach 0, if you get killed, you have a traveling companion, you can restart your health back up to 8 health. But if you can make it to the castle, you get to battle the Demon Lord as well in order to win the game. But there's a lot of combination of these cards in the first place, because you're going to have, as it says here on the left side, 14 different ability cards, 11 different enemy cards, and where's the magic cards as a whole? I don't even see them. Yeah, the ability cards actually contain the magic cards, 4 advanced, 3 basic, and 6 travel companions. So yeah, having the expansion is probably a must. I just don't know whether or not it's going to have enough depth of replayability. It's something that it would be really cute, really nice, and something to take around with me portability wise. But I don't know, right? Like, I'm not a solo person, so I have a hard time figuring out whether or not this is going to be right for me. And I guess I would say, 1, if you want this game at all, you have to get it now. And 2, if you want this game at all, I think with the expansion, it's probably more of the actual bonus here as well. Yeah, I mean, it's one that, again, I'm FOMOing a little bit on. You know me, I don't FOMO a whole lot, but this is one. These always have my blind spot, and I'm going to be going down to the wire with this one in the first place. Shipping is going to be, shipping's 8 euros. It's going to cost you 30 euros. It's going to cost you a little over $30 for this micro solo game. I don't know, but that's why I'm talking about it. And you guys can tell me what to do in the comment section, even though my own advice always is, if you don't know, pass on it. But I'm FOMOing a little bit at the end of this video here, and you can take it for what it is. There you go. That's it. That's the roundup. I just got a super special secret game in the mail today. Sort of requested, but not really. Like, I signed up on this publisher's website, and they haven't really sent me anything in like ever, hardly. And then they sent me something today in the mail. It's something unreleased. It's something on the Essen hot list. It's something you would recognize if I named it for you. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow in tomorrow's video. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell people, though. They didn't say not to tell people. I don't know. That's all I got going on. We have a soccer game this weekend. I'm working all weekend. Soccer game's on Sunday afternoon, though, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Kid's still trying to figure out to do. All of a sudden, my wife brings him home from practice tonight, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he said he wanted to do the YMCA soccer next year instead of this." And I'm like, I don't know. Like, he says he likes it, he says he loves it, but he's also a little intimidated, and it's kind of going back and forth. So we'll see. I don't know. He's having fun though, and especially as a parent, you have like these hopes and expectations for your kids, right? And so I was hoping he would be pretty good and he would have a good time and he could get some leg out of it. And you know what? If it meant paying more than probably it's worth, I was okay with that. You know, if he was really having a good time and he could make some actual progress. But I don't know. It's still early in the year and early in the season, so we'll see. I could see myself going either way on it. I hope he just enjoys it. And if he wants to do it again, we'll see. If he doesn't, you know what? I've made my peace with that too. Made my peace with that. The other kid's doing a robotics club after school. That's going to be cool for him. Hopefully he gets into that. But then also he's like, hey, Dad, I want to do gymnastics. And he's like the one that's like super wiry strong. Like this kid's hanging upside down on rings, gymnastic rings in our garage without any difficulty. Doing flips off of them. Like, so I have a hard time saying no to that, right? The kid is like ripped wire. And it's just like, I don't know, it's crazy actually. I wish I could do the stuff in the rings that he can do actually from that side of things. I wish I could do the stuff that he does in the rings. So that's all I got. Otherwise, yeah, I just have a bunch of reviews. They're going to see a bunch of reviews. I'm overdue on a couple of reviews from a couple of companies that I have a mea culpa on, and I'm just like slow doing them. Slow. So I'm working on that too. Hopefully you checked out the indie game video from earlier this week, as well as the other two from the crowdfunding video today. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to think. And let me know what you want to think. Yeah, that happens when I'm just talking too fast out of my mouth right there. Talking too fast out of my mouth. I'm doing well. This video needs to end. It's been going on for way too long in the first place. Stay classy. Have a great day. Tune in tomorrow. Upcoming next week's. Because I have a video coming out next week of one of the games that's launching of probably the best cooperative game I played in a long time. The hardest though too. Spoilers. Tune in tomorrow.